Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and as the thumbnail and the title says, today is going to be about, I'm clearly very obsessed with my skull. Actually no, she's Super Lakshmi and I put a small bottu for her too. Anyways, moving on, today's video is going to be about the cranial fossa, norma basalis, lateralis, verticalis, everything about the skull. Because I've been trying to find videos on YouTube which covers all aspects of skull without going for like 5-6 videos which are 15 minutes long. I thought of making one video which is half an hour long. It's gonna be pretty long, but deal with it. Anyways, I hope you guys can bear with me and the skull. So let's get right into the video. Alright, so the skull, the most important bony structure of our body, which protects the brain and head and neck basically. So now before we start studying the skull, we need to identify the different parts. This that you see is the cranium, and this is the mandible, and this is the only synovial joint present in the skull. The rest of the joints that you see in between bones of the skull are sutures. Sutures are immovable fibrous joints. So, the temporomandibular joint, or this particular joint, is the only one that permits movements apart from the ear ossicles, which we won't really be studying in today's video. So, this is the anatomical position of the skull. You basically have to hold it with the lower border of the orbit and the upper border of the external auditory meatus in the same plane. We will be studying the skull in different aspects. The first one being norma verticalis. Norma verticalis is when I look at the skull from a superior aspect, that is from this way. Let us look at the bones forming norma verticalis. It's the frontal bone, or the squamous part of the frontal bone, and the squamous part of the occipital bone. And the bone in between both of these is the parietal bone. Now, let us talk about the sutures. Sutures are the joints in between these bones that make up the cranium. So, the first suture that you see here horizontally, it is the coronal suture. And this longitudinal suture that you see is the sagittal suture. And finally, the suture in between the parietal and the occipital bone that you see it here is the lambdoid suture. Now, let us talk about two important points. The first one is bregma. Now, bregma is the joining point of the sagittal and coronal suture. This here is the parietal tuber, and this is the area of maximum convexity of parietal bone. Finally, we have the vertex. The vertex, as the name suggests, is the highest point on the skull, and it lies on the sagittal suture. And it's almost like about a few centimeters behind the bregma. And finally, we have these two holes that you see here, which is known as the parietal foramen. These parietal foramen basically transmit emissary veins. Emissary veins are the veins that connect the veins of the scalp and face to the veins in the brain, cranial cavity, dural venous sinuses, etc. So these veins are very important since they can pass on infections from the external aspect to the brain, which can cause various problems like meningitis, etc. Followed by obelion. Obelion is a part on the sagittal suture, and this is in between these two parietal foramen. Now let's move on to norma occipitalis. Norma occipitalis is when you view the skull from behind. Okay, so the bones making up this particular view is the parietal bones, as you see, the occipital bone, the squamous part, which is most of norma occipitalis, as the name suggests, and the temporal bone, and the mastoid part of the temporal bone, to be more precise. And now let us talk about the suture. You can see the lambdoid suture obviously here. If you see clearly, you can also see the occipitomastoid suture. So this, whatever you see here, is the mastoid process of the temporal bone. And the last suture is the peritoma-mastoid suture. Now, do you remember bregma? Now we're going to talk about another such point, which is lambda. Now, lambda is the joining point between the sagittal and lambdoid suture. And this, the most prominent elevation that you're seeing here, it's the external occipital protuberance. It's of great significance since it provides origin to muscles such as trapezius. And the most prominent part of this external occipital protuberance is known as inion. These two lines that you see that is going from the external occipital protuberance are known as superior nuchal lines. And a line that is just above the superior nuchal line is the highest nuchal line, and the lines below are known as inferior nuchal lines. And this vertical line that you're seeing, which passes from the external occipital protuberance till foramen magnum, foramen magnum is the largest foramen that you're seeing in the skull through which the brainstem passes. So this particular line is known as external occipital crest. And finally, these two other foramens that you can make out are known as the mastoid foramen. Again, these pass through the emissary veins. Also, apologies because my skull is not a real one and you might not be able to see all the foramens, but I'll definitely mark it out for you here. Let us now move on to norma frontalis. As the name suggests, it is the front view or the anterior view. So, in the frontal view, you can see these bones. The frontal bone, the zygomatic bone, and the zygomatic bone is the one that forms the prominence of your cheeks, followed by nasal bones. This forms the nose, the upper part, and the maxillary, also known as the upper jaw, and the mandibular, also known as the lower jaw. And the sutures that you see here are this, the frontonasal suture, the internasal suture, the fronto-maxillary suture, and zygomatico-maxillary suture. And as you know, it's easy to remember these sutures. That is because they're literally the names of the two bones that the suture joins. Now let us look at some of the prominent features. The first one being superciliary arches. So the superciliary arches that you see here, that's basically where your eyebrows are present. The next feature here is the glabella. It is between the two superciliary arches and it is the place where you place your bindi mostly. And then the frontal prominence is the most rounded elevation above the superciliary arch of the frontal bone. This thing that you see here is the orbit. Orbit is where the eyeball is present. Now the orbit has a superior margin. This is the supraorbital margin formed completely by the frontal bone. It has a small notch here which is known as the supraorbital notch, and it transmits the supraorbital nerves and vessels, that is the artery and vein. And now the zygomaticofacial foramen. This zygomaticofacial foramen transmits the zygomatic part of the maxillary nerve. Now this thing, the sharp thing that you see here, is the anterior nasal spine, which is present in between the anterior nasal aperture. Nasal aperture is basically this open space where the nose cartilage is supposed to be present. And finally, you have nasion. Nasion is where this internasal and frontonasal sutures meet. And then you have alveolar process of maxilla and mandible. So maxilla ka alveolar process is where the upper teeth are inserted into the jaw sockets, and similarly mandible's alveolar process is where the lower teeth is inserted into the jaw sockets. And then you have symphysis menti. So this mandible bone that you're seeing here, lower jaw, this detachable bone is actually made up of two bones. It's made up of two left and right halves, which is joined permanently by this ridge here, which is known as symphysis menti. It's not really prominent. It's a very strong fibrous articulation, that is why. And then you have the mental foramen. So menti is nothing but chin. Okay, so the mental foramen, it transmits the mental nerve, artery and vein. Infraorbital foramen, infra means below. So below the orbit, you have infraorbital foramen, which transmits the infraorbital nerve, artery, vein. Finally, you have the inferior and superior orbital fissure, which I will be talking about more when we learn the cranial cavity in the same video. So now let us move on to norma lateralis. So obviously it's from the lateral view, from the side. You have the bones that are there are a lot of bones that make this up. You have the frontal, parietal, occipital, temporal, zygomatic, mandibular, maxillary, and one bone that you haven't learned yet, which is the sphenoid bone. The sutures that you can see here are the coronal suture, the parieto-temporal suture, and the lambdoid suture. Now, let us talk about its features. The first one being zygomatic arch. So this is the zygomatic bone, the one that makes your chica prominence. It has a small arch-like structure, as you can see here. This zygomatic arch is kind of important because this is the one that provides attachment to the masseteric muscle. Masseteric muscle is the one that helps in mastication or chewing food. And now let us talk about external acoustic meatus. This is basically the bony part of your auditory canal, that is ear. And then you have suprameatal triangle that you can see here. Below the suprameatal triangle, you can find mastoid antrum. Mastoid antrum is basically filled with air cells, okay? And this is also an extension of the middle ear. Another very important prominence that you can see here is the mastoid process. Mastoid process provides origin and insertion to important muscles like the digastric muscle and this prominent neck muscle that you know, which is sternocleidomastoid. And finally, we can also see asterion. Now, asterion is an important landmark. It is the meeting point of the parieto-mastoid, occipito-mastoid, and lambdoid sutures. Next, let us talk about styloid process. So, the styloid process is a long, bony kind of process of the temporal bone. Okay, so the styloid process is important because it provides origin to the stylomandibular ligament and many others functions as such. And then we have the temporal fossa. So this is the temporal bone, and the part covering the temporal bone is the temporal fossa. It is bound by the temporal line above and below by the zygomatic arch. So this temporal fossa is where the temporalis muscle takes origin from, and it's connected below through the zygomatic arch to the infratemporal fossa. As the name suggests, infratemporal fossa is below the temporal bone and it has a lot of clinical significance. It bears the otic ganglion and it has very important muscles, the maxillary artery, mandibular nerve, etc., which I might be talking about in some later videos. And then we have pterion. Pterion is another very, very important part. So the pterion here is the part where the four bones, that is frontal, temporal, parietal, and here the greater wing of sphenoid. Sphenoid is the other bone that I was talking about. All these bones join and it's H-shaped almost, if you can see. So pterion is important because right behind pterion you can see the middle meningeal artery. So the middle meningeal artery is the one that supplies the outer layer of the meninges of the brain or the coverings of the brain, the dura mater. So whenever there is a sort of injury to this part or the pterion, this may cause the middle meningeal artery to rupture. And this rupture can cause extradural hematoma or collection of blood/clot formation in between the skull bone and the meninges of the brain. So this extension that you see here is the lateral pterygoid process of the sphenoid, and this small space that you see here extending from this part is the pterygomaxillary fissure, which is again of importance since the maxillary artery enters from this place, the third part of it, and the nerve too. And now let us move on to norma basalis. It is a little bit more complicated. For this, I'm going to have to remove the mandible so that you have a clearer view. So let us look at the bones that are forming norma basalis. Here you have the alveolar process of the maxilla, as you can see. And then you have the hard palate. So as you know, our mouth is made up of a hard and a soft palate. And again, as the name suggests, the hard palate is the one that you can feel above your tongue if you try putting your tongue above. So the hard palate is formed of two bones. Number one is the palatine process of maxilla, followed by the horizontal process of the palatine bones. And all of these together form different sutures that I've mentioned here. That is the intermaxillary suture, interpalatine suture, and palatomaxillary suture, followed by one of the main bone making up this particular norma basalis, that is the sphenoid. You can also see the temporal and occipital bone in this particular view. Let us talk about how this view is divided. It is divided into three parts by an anterior line which passes along the posterior free margin of the hard palate, that is here, followed by the posterior line which passes along the anterior border of the foramen magnum, as we discussed before. Now let us talk about the anterior part. We already discussed the palate, the alveolar arch. Let's go to the middle part. Now the middle part is a bit complicated. You can see here the pharyngeal tubercle is a small elevation here in the median plane, okay, right in front of foramen magnum. Now you can also see the pterygoid process, as we discussed before, the medial and lateral pterygoid process. The lateral one is obviously more lateral as compared to the medial one. Then you also have something known as the scaphoid fossa, which is there right here in the upper part of the medial pterygoid process. And you also have pterygoid hamillus. Pterygoid hamillus is a hook-like process of the medial pterygoid process, which is to be seen very prominently. Then we can talk about foramen that you can see here. So let me explain what a foramen exactly is. Foramen is any kind of opening through which stuff can pass through. So stuff needs to pass through to the brain, outside the brain, from the head and neck, right? So these foramens basically do that work. So in this part you can see there are a lot of foramens, and let us discuss these one by one. So the first one that we're going to see here is foramen spinosum and foramen ovale. And I'm going to be discussing this in detail in the cranial fossa. So let us move on to this small spine kind of structure you see of the sphenoid here, which is known as spine of sphenoid. Do not confuse it with the styloid process. The spine of sphenoid is very important because you have the auriculotemporal and chorda tympani nerve attached very close to the spine. So any injury or fracture to the spine can lead to disruption of these nerves. Now these nerves are very important for salivation as they supply the submandibular, sublingual and parotid glands. So there is impaired salivation. Let us talk about sulcus tubae, this small sulcus that you can see here. This is where the cartilaginous part of the auditory tube passes through. Let us look at these other canal, that is the carotid canal and the foramen lacerum. So this will also be covered in the cranial fossa, but just mentioning that this is where the internal carotid artery enters the brain. And now let us look at foramen magnum. We've already discussed this. These two are the occipital condyles. Occipital condyles are needed for the first vertebra to articulate with the skull. And then we have the jugular foramen that you can see here. Jugular foramen is the foramen through which the internal jugular vein passes. And then we have the stylomastoid foramen in between the mastoid process and the styloid process. It's very important because the stylomastoid artery, which supplies the major part of the inner ear, and the facial nerve passes through. And then we have the hypoglossal canal, which is, again, as the name suggests, it is for the passage of the hypoglossal nerve. Then we have the external occipital protuberance, which we saw before too. And this is what the norma basalis is formed of. Let us move on to mandible, which is a separate bone. As you know, mandible, this is the lower jaw. This is the only movable point of the entire skull. So this is U in shaped almost, and you can see it has a body. It has a ramus, which is these two vertical structures that you see here. It has this alveolar process that we discussed about. It has digastric fossa anteriorly. The digastric muscle, the anterior digastric muscle, it takes origin from this point. Then we also have these two foramens, which are known as the mental foramen. Mental, again, chin. So the mental foramen and the symphysis menti that we can see here. Mental foramen passes the mental nerve artery vein, as we discussed before. You can see this oblique line that passes in the anterior part. And then we have the incisive fossa over here. It's not very prominent, but this is right below the incisor teeth. Then we have, from this view, the mylohyoid line and the mylohyoid groove. Okay, the mylohyoid nerves and vessels run in this particular groove. It's not very prominent here. So basically what happens is the inferior alveolar artery and nerve, before they enter, what you can see here is the mandibular foramen. They give off the mylohyoid nerves and vessels, which pass through this particular groove. And now, as we know, there is the sublingual and submandibular gland that is present in close association with the mandible. So this is the fossa for the sublingual and the submandibular glands. And the other features that we can see here are the mandibular foramen, as we talked about, which passes the inferior alveolar nerve and vessels. We can also see the condyle of the mandible. Condyle of the mandible is the articulating part of the mandible, which articulates with the temporal bone. So it's the temporomandibular joint. And then we also have the coronoid process. Coronoid process is important because it gives insertion to a lot of muscles which are responsible for the movement of the jaw. And we also have the small fovea here, which is known as pterygoid fovea, for the insertion of lateral pterygoid muscle. Then can you see the small tongue-like structure that is known as lingula? Okay, it basically covers the mandibular foramen. Lingula has an attachment which is the sphenomandibular ligament. Sphenomandibular ligament is very important when you have to give anesthesia. It's mostly used in dentistry. So this inferior alveolar nerve is to be anesthetized when dentistry procedures are to be performed, and that is why this sphenomandibular ligament that you see is a very good marker for where this particular nerve can be found. And then you have the angle of the mandible, which is very prominent. You can also see it on your own body. And then you have the neck of the condyle, or the condyle is the head and this is the neck. So the neck is in very close association with the auriculotemporal nerve. And this is about the mandible. Let us move on to the most important part, which is the cranial fossa. The cranial fossa is divided into three parts: the anterior, middle and posterior cranial fossa, which is pretty prominent here. So the anterior cranial fossa, anteriorly it's bound by the frontal bone, obviously, and its posterior part is basically made of the lesser wing of sphenoid. Sphenoid has two wings. This is the lesser wing, this is the greater wing. So the lesser wing of sphenoid basically binds the posterior part of anterior cranial fossa. And in the medial aspect, you can see it's also bound by the sulcus chiasmaticus. So sulcus chiasmaticus is basically the part wherein the optic chiasma runs through. Optic chiasma is the structure that is formed by the joining of the two optic nerves which come from the optic canal that you can see here. So they join in between to form the optic chiasma, which again divides later. So this is the sulcus chiasmaticus. So now let us look at the features of the anterior cranial fossa. This that you see here is the anterior clinoid process, which is joining the two borders, that is lesser wing of sphenoid and the sulcus chiasmaticus. Then you can see the foramen cecum here, which passes an emissary vein from the nasal cavity. You can see it's a perforated membrane kind of structure here. So it has a lot of holes. So these holes are basically necessary for the passage of the olfactory nerves from the nasal part. So olfactory nerves help in sensing smell. So these olfactory nerves, they pass from the nasal part into the cranial cavity, into the brain, through these holes, which is also known as the cribriform plate of ethmoid. Okay. Now let us move on to another thing which is known as the crista galli, this prominent part here from where the falx cerebri is attached. Falx cerebri is basically the outermost layer of the brain, that is the dura mater of the meninges, is the dura mater. It folds into several folds, alright? It is made up of two layers, and those two layers fold onto each other to form various dural folds. So the most prominent dural fold, which is the falx cerebri, attaches anteriorly to this crista galli. Then we can also make out the anterior and posterior ethmoidal canal for the passage of the anterior and posterior ethmoidal arteries, veins and nerves respectively right here. Now let us move on to the middle cranial fossa. The middle cranial fossa is very important. It has a lot of foramens. So let us start with its boundaries. Anteriorly, obviously, the lesser wing of sphenoid, and posteriorly, it is the petrous part of the temporal bone. Okay, this is known as the petrous part of the temporal bone, and the dorsum sellae. Dorsum sellae is this particular elevation. So let us talk about sella turcica. That is this part. Sella turcica is where the pituitary gland is situated. So this fossa you see here is known as hypophyseal fossa. The anterior part is the tuberculum sellae, which bears the middle clinoid processes. And the posterior part is the dorsum sellae, which bears the posterior clinoid processes. Now, this is where the pituitary gland is present. Let us talk about the greater wing of sphenoid, that is here. So, it has a lot of foramens. Starting with foramen ovale, which we also learned in Norma Basalis. Foramen ovale passes the mandibular nerve, the accessory middle meningeal artery, lesser petrosal nerve, and the emissary veins, and the mnemonic for this is MALE, male. Now, foramen spinosum is the small one right behind foramen ovale. This helps in the passage of nervus spinosus, which is a part of the mandibular nerve, and middle meningeal artery, which is very, very important. And then you have foramen rotundum here, which is not really seen in Norma Basalis. Foramen rotundum is the foramen through which the maxillary nerve or the maxillary part of trigeminal nerve passes through. And here you can see the superior orbital fissure. So the superior orbital fissure is very important since a lot of structures pass through it, and you can see them right here. One of the most important structure that passes through this is the oculomotor nerve, the abducens nerve, and the trochlear nerve. And I've divided it into three parts because there is one common tendinous ring through which a lot of structures pass. So a few structures pass through the ring, a few structures pass above, and a few structures pass below. You can just read it through here. Then you also have the foramen lacerum. Foramen lacerum, you have the meningeal branch of ascending pharyngeal artery, emissary vein, and the greater petrosal nerve passing. Now, you also have, most importantly, the internal carotid artery passing through it. Basically, the internal carotid artery enters the carotid canal and the foramen lacerum, through which it bends over and reaches the cranial fossa. So, now you also have the groove for middle meningeal artery here, which is very prominent, and it's important for the side determination of the parietal bone. And you can also see the anterior and posterior division of it. You can also see the trigeminal impression here on the petrous part of the temporal bone. It's where the trigeminal ganglion lies on. And then you also have the tegmen tympani. It's a very thin bone and it forms the roof of the middle ear. Now finally, let's talk about the posterior cranial fossa. Okay, this small slide kind of thing that you're seeing that goes into the foramen magnum is the clivus. Okay, this is where the midbrain lies on. And now you have foramen magnum, obviously. A lot of things pass through this. Most importantly, the midbrain, the brainstem, the apical alar ligaments, membrana tectoria. These are the ligaments that attach to the first vertebra. And then you also have the spinal arteries which supply the spinal cord, the anterior posterior spinal arteries derived from the vertebral arteries. Now vertebral arteries obviously pass through it. Vertebral arteries, they enter the foramen magnum. They are a branch of subclavian artery. And then you have the spinal accessory nerve, or the spinal roots of the spinal accessory nerve. And now let us talk about the structures in the occipital bone. So you saw external occipital protuberance, right? So the same part corresponds inside to the internal occipital protuberance, the internal occipital crest. And the structures that you're seeing here, these grooves, are for the sinuses. Sinuses are basically these venous channels that run in the brain, through which the deoxygenated blood and the cerebrospinal fluid passes through. So these sinuses form great indentations on the bones. So this is for the transverse sinus, and this that you're seeing is for the sigmoid sinus. And now you have the internal auditory meatus. The internal auditory meatus, the 7th, 8th nerves pass through, 7th, 8th cranial nerves, that is the facial and vestibulocochlear nerve. You also have the internal auditory vessels. You also have the jugular foramen here. Jugular foramen, the sigmoid sinus continues as the internal jugular vein, and you have the passage of the 9th, 10th and 11th cranial nerves. The 9th, 10th and 11th cranial nerves are basically the glossopharyngeal, vagus and spinal accessory nerves. And finally, we've seen this before also, this is the hypoglossal canal, and here you have the passage of the 12th cranial nerve, that is the hypoglossal nerve. You can also see here the posterior condylar canal, and that is about it for the cranial fossa. I can't believe I finished this in half an hour. I'm pretty proud actually. So this was the video. This was the skull. If you have any doubts or any corrections in my video, then please do type down in the comments below. This was one video I really put in efforts for, so I really hope you liked it. I will come up with new content probably every month, probably in a few weeks. So yeah, I hope you guys liked it, and I will see you very, very soon. Love you all. I have my exams yet again from 4th, and this time they're going to be bad because we had online classes for these exams. To be fair, I listen to online classes, but it's still a little bit on the fence about how I'm going to do in these exams. By the way, my first sessionals were good. I scored pretty well. I'm happy with my performance. But my second sessionals, they include CNS and CVS, both these major topics. I'm okay with the concepts, but again, exams mein concepts will not work, especially when there's a subjective paper. You're supposed to mug up a little bit. So that part I'll work on for the next few weeks. So see you guys soon after my exams are done, after stuff eases out. Okay, bye guys. I really hope you liked it. Bye.